Good morning and welcome to the Flexible Space Association's latest webinar. I'm Jane Sartin, I'm the Executive Director of FlexSA, and this is a new series for us of webinars which we're titling Workspace Wisdom Webinars, and the idea being that they will be a practical, helpful look at matters relating to running flexible workspace businesses. And we're starting with what's quite a hot topic generally for businesses and for individuals of energy costs. And I'm joined by Dannie Ford from Flexible Space Association members Enexus Energy. And I'll hand over to Dannie in a moment, who I'm sure will tell you a bit more about herself and Enexus, and will take us through a presentation, which I think will be about 15 to 20 minutes. And if you've got any questions as we go along, if you can put them in the chat box, and then at the end, when Dannie's finished, I will pick up as many questions as I can. And we've got a couple that came in before as people registered. So I will get Dannie's presentation for her and hand over. Okay.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this and obviously allowing me to kickstart the first of the Workspace Wisdom webinars. It's really fun. My name's Dannie and I'm the Partnerships Manager at Enexus Energy. And today I'll be just taking a look into why we're in this energy crisis firstly, and when and if we're going to get some relief from it. And in the theme of Big Energy Save Week, which began yesterday, I'll be going over some sort of tips on how you might be able to lower your energy consumption and therefore your cost. So firstly, to answer the question of just how bad the energy market has been, in short, it's been pretty bad and chaotic. I didn't think I'd see prices like this in the time that I've been in the industry. So the next obvious question to ask is how we got here. To answer that, it's important to take note of what has sort of happened over the last 2 years and to get us to where we are now. As with everything, the pandemic's had its impacts. The fundamentals of this energy crisis has been down to the low levels of gas storage and the demand of energy coming out of lockdown, and obviously the ever increasing sort of concerns around when the new gas pipeline Nord Stream 2 will be going live. So I'll take a little bit of a further look into that. So as you can see, looking at the graph in the top left corner, the demand took a dive in Q2 of 2020 as we entered the first of a few lockdowns. The demand for gas and electric was suppressed due to the business closures. And as you can see, the gradual rise as businesses started to reopen towards the end of 2020. Then if we're popping our attention over to the graph showing the Russian gas exports to Europe, you can sort of see the clear difference looking at the gas coming in from 2018 and 19 compared to 2020 and 2021. So that tight gas supply has largely been driven by the fundamentals of the global gas market, with that obviously having very little gas coming into Europe from Russia, along with the pressures of the energy demand rising coming out of the pandemic. It was really clear that there was going to be an issue later down the line. It's also worth mentioning that in September 2021, there was a fire at one of the interconnectors in Kent, which impacted the amount of gas that we had coming into the UK, which was quite problematic. What we know for sure ultimately is that there was less gas flow coming in from Russia, and that's exacerbated our supply. So to summarise, increase in demand after lockdown, tighter than ever supply results in a larger than ever increase. So to give you an idea of just where we are with the European gas storage situation, jumping back to 2018 and remembering the beast from the east, you can see just how bad that bout of weather took an impact on our gas storage levels, with the light blue line showing the hit that the storage took. Now, if you bring your attention to the little green line on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the data collected from the start of this year, 2022. You'll notice that it's the lowest amount of storage that we've entered the year with, and we're looking at lows similar to that we experienced in 2018 moving forward. Although there is some good news here. So gas demand fell off a cliff at the start of this year as well. It's because we experienced quite a mild winter and Christmas period. Warm weather leads to obviously not having to use as much gas. by the end of March, we could have been sort of depleted of gas levels completely if we would have had a cold forecast over the Christmas period. But because that hasn't been the case, it's unlikely that we're going to run out of storage before 2022 winter. Although it is important to mention here as well that we are approaching a couple of cold months ahead of us as well. So yeah, it's not out of the thick of it yet. It is important to mention as well that we've got some LNG coming in. It was an issue in 2021 summer, so we've got some more coming over in the next few weeks or so, receiving as many as I think 30 cargoes, boosting the supply, which as of yesterday is hinting towards prices falling quite a bit. So looking at Nord Stream 2, it is a new export gas pipeline running from Russia to Europe across the Baltic Sea. The decision to build Nord Stream 2 is based on the successful experience in building and operating the Nord Stream gas pipeline. This was supposed to go live in Q4 of 2021, at which point it became apparent that this would be delayed until March 2022. Coming out of that winter period, this would have given us a great relief on the gas storage levels and therefore the price. However, Nord Stream 2 is not likely to be sanctioned or online before Q4 of 2022 due to tensions between Russia and Ukraine. If these tensions continue further, then we would see prices spiral. What is interesting is what happened in November. We saw energy flows ramp up, which give us a little bit of a relief on the prices, but yeah, there was sort of a lot of ideas that the European gas storage levels is down to Russia putting pressure on Europe to push through the approval of Nord Stream 2. So moving on to how this affects the energy prices in the UK, here's a graph showing just the last year of prices, and I'm sure that you're aware that the recent news in relation to energy crisis, and the energy price cap rising from April, which is forecast to increase household bills by an average of £1,000 per home, which obviously is affecting us all. This all stems from the astronomical rises that we saw throughout 2021. You can see that gradual rise there from January onwards, and it peaked towards the end of November. However, over the last few weeks, we've sort of seen some relief. As I said, temperatures were relatively mild. So you can see the drop in the market on the graph just there coming into the start of this year. That said, there are some stumbling blocks ahead in the UK, leaving us in quite a vulnerable position. It's our view that we are likely to see continued price volatility as the price driving fundamentals are all remaining in play. So Nord Stream 2 isn't likely to be online until the end of the year, which was one of the saving graces for most people. In summary, it's really difficult and a volatile market to be in at the moment, and we're not at the winter period. And as a business owner, it's something to be really aware of with that. But we're not going to run out of gas supplies because we had a mild Christmas. And I suppose gas supply is going to be really critical. If we see more LNG continuing to fill up the storage, then it will take a lot of pressure off us, and we're going to be in a bit of a pickle if not. There's a lot of uncertainty ahead, and it's also worth mentioning that if the tensions between Russia and Ukraine escalate further, then we could see prices spiral. So I hope you found that brief update of just what's going on in the market quite useful. I tried to keep it as brief as possible because it can get quite complex. Even though we've seen some sort of strong moves down in the gas and power markets through the latter half of December, the prices are still very, very high. And I'm sure it's likely going to be giving a lot of you a headache if you're having to deal with renewals this year. So let's move on to how to maybe manage that moving forward. So what you can do in the next year if you have got a renewal in 2022, our advice has changed since we sort of looked at what you can do in 2022, what we sent out through FlexSA just before Christmas. If your contract is due before spring, I'd encourage you to look at prices now. They're not going to lower before then. We're hoping for them to soften by Christmas, but it's it's really high at the moment, and deemed rates are just very unfavourable. So just looking at Opus Energy's deemed rates as of the 1st of January 2022, for a small business, businesses are looking at £4 standing charge per day and 85 pence unit rate per kilowatt hour, which, just to put that into context, when I started in this market in 2018, the deemed rates for Opus were 95 pence standing charge per day and 25 pence unit rate per kilowatt hour. So there's a huge difference there. So yeah, I'd encourage you to have a look at prices if you are due for renewal before spring, and if you're due for renewal in the latter half of the year. You do have a little bit of time, but yeah, advise to track the market and keep on top of it. Being proactive is the best thing you can do right now in this energy market. There may be some cost-effective opportunities later in the year, especially with the knowledge that we've got LNG being shipped over to relieve the storage levels of the next few months. So as I mentioned, it's Big Energy Save Week, which is a big week in the energy market. So Energy Saving Week is a national campaign that aims to help encourage people to save energy. This was created in partnership with Citizens Advice, the Energy Saving Trust, and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. The UK has been experiencing an energy crisis. I've just gone over, and we've seen wholesale energy prices rising by 300% in 2021. That impact has obviously caused a lot of suppliers to cease trading. I've got 28 written down here, but I think it's a lot more than that now. With energy prices soaring to unprecedented levels, Energy Saving Week seems like a really good time to sort of be proactive and look into what you can be doing to reduce your consumption and therefore cutting your cost. So here's just a few tips on how you might go about doing that. One of them is switching to LED lighting. And I feel like it's something that we rattle on a lot about, but it's absolutely beneficial to look at reducing cost. Obviously, in an ideal world, people would switch lights off when a room is not in use, but by installing motion sensors, you can make sure that unoccupied areas aren't being lit unnecessarily. So check that they're up to date and look into undertaking a survey to review energy saving, as it could be really worth your time. It's something that I find has saved a lot of our customers quite a substantial amount of money. Getting everyone on board in the conversation, so keeping that conversation going is really important. Talking about what you're doing as a business to ensure that there's always sort of awareness and to change the behaviour in the workspace. Holding sort of green weeks or green days just to keep the conversation going always. Educating staff on the scale of the issue as well, and the positive impact that could be made with their participation within the business. That could lead to sort of more responsible ways of working. Trying to create more motivational posters, encouraging staff and users to turn equipment off or on standby when not in use. It could have quite a large impact as well. So going green with renewables is also obviously a large part where you could reduce your consumption. On-site energy generation has a lot of environmental benefits, obviously. Through the use of your own energy generation, you reduce your reliance on the grid, which is mostly made up of non-renewable sources. But not only that, it also is becoming more prevalent during this energy crisis, that renewables are a more viable and safe option to not be relying on the grid. Despite on-site generation bringing many benefits, I understand it's not practical for all businesses, but as energy consultants, being the utility service provider for the FlexSA space, we can sort of help guide you through that process and sort of ascertain what the best solution for you would be. And last but not least, this is probably the most vital step to energy efficiency, and it's to be proactive in the market by having a clear understanding of your energy consumption and contract renewal dates. Many businesses are guilty of leaving their business energy contracts renewal to the last minute for all sorts of reasons. Obviously, you're nurturing a growing business and there's only so much time you have in the day. Having a plan in place can help you gain clarity on your energy efficiency goals and prevent you from approaching the market at that unfavourable time. And if the last year has taught us anything, it's that the old strategy for buying energy is really no longer fit for the market that we're finding ourselves in. It's been really beneficial to appoint an energy expert who understands the complexities of the market, just simply so you don't have to. Timing in that is the single most important factor in determining your energy price. I'm going to repeat that. Timing is the single most important factor in determining your energy price. Prices vary wildly each year by 500% in 2021. I've not quite seen anything like it. It's been chaotic. So a good energy partner will help you determine the best time for you to lock in a price. Without that, you're essentially giving yourself a 1 in a 365-day chance of getting it right. So give your business better odds than that. One thing I will say is that while listening to this, you're likely thinking that it sounds really time consuming and that you don't have the time to track the market each day, assess gas storage levels, generation forecast, weather forecast, LNG shipments, everything that I've covered. On top of that, you might not have the resources to liaise with 20 plus suppliers, accurately comparing all their prices as well. A good consultant does have the time to do that and resource to do it for you. So as a FlexSA service provider, we can sort of take all them steps to ensure that your business is paying as little as possible. In this complex market, as I've showed you in the earlier slides, it's invaluable to have an energy partner on your side. So I hope this has sort of given you a good update on where we're up to and a good insight of what's going on in the energy market and how you might be able to move forward in this next year. It's a difficult year to navigate, but just give yourself time and be proactive. And thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dannie. I think there was quite a lot there, and hopefully some really easy tips as well. I think probably that the one about LED lighting, I'm sure that's something that everyone could do this afternoon. Just have a walk around and just check what bulbs are actually in lights, because sometimes things have been in place for perhaps longer than you think. So perhaps that's the easiest and quickest one, but lots of other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely invaluable to have a look at them.
Yeah, and it chimes as well. A lot of what you said, of course, we're all becoming more aware of the need to be making environmentally sensible decisions as well. So actually, these two things go quite well together at the moment in saving money and hopefully doing a bit to save the planet as well. So it's good all around. So I've had a couple of questions that came in before, and there's still time if anybody watching wants to put any more questions into the chat box, then we'll pick those up. But ones that we had in before, one from one of our workspace operators in Essex, which isn't that far from where I'm sitting at the moment, and it's really cold here. So I suspect it's pretty cold here, and this is a more pertinent question than ever. How do other operators plan to make up for the increasing energy costs? And Dannie, is this something that you've maybe got any insight into from talking to your customers that you can share any thoughts on?
I think that is quite a difficult question for me to answer, because we know increase in cost is going to hit businesses' bottom line. How we're going to make up for them increases isn't something that I can advise on, but what I have covered today hopefully gives operators a bit of food for thought on how we might be able to sort of help mitigate those increases. I suppose if the cost from the grid, if that's going up, then if you draw less from the grid, then great. That is one way to start, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess the reality is it won't come as a surprise to any customers of Flexible Workspace if they are being told that these costs are soaring for the operator. But it's obviously a challenging time to be trying to put up costs generally, which isn't helping. But I suspect the reality is that that people are taking different approaches to this. I mean, I'd certainly be interested to hear from any of our members what they're doing, and if we get some responses in on that, then we can maybe share them in a future newsletter in an anonymous way. So do people get in touch with me? And then the other question was, is there any benchmarking of energy costs across Flexible Workspace operators to make sure that that everyone's ensuring the lowest cost?
There is, I suppose, there is no league table across members, I guess. That information is confidential. And in addition, 2 rates for 2 different businesses are incomparable because there's a lot of factors that go into it. Every supply is priced on their own profile and location. So, for example, a business in Scotland would likely probably pay more than a business in London because of having to get that energy out to them. In saying that, there is an option for members to pull together to sort of join an energy basket. But that would mean each member would be losing their own autonomy, and they would be priced as one. So it's not something that can be done overnight, for one, and it takes a lot of organising and a lot of businesses to sort of group together to have a look at. But it's something that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I think in the sector with so many different types and ages of buildings, and some people on modern business parks with buildings that have been maybe built in more recent years, and others that are in very beautiful buildings that are very historic, but insulation is often really bad, isn't it? And it's difficult to put in some of these new systems. And on things, installing solar panels, which sounds really massive work. Is it perhaps easier in some instances than people might think it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all comes down to everything to do with roof space. So what's viable for your business. It's difficult because there is a lot of new technologies out there, but it's you can do a whole energy sort of health check on that, and to see if your business is viable for renewable energy, because sometimes it works out that it might not be. Yeah, but definitely there's something to look into.
Okay, and we've had a few more questions in. So would there be a cap on commercial properties in the future, as they are doing with residential users? Is that something that's expected, or?
That is not something I actually know.
I suspect no one does.
It's such a it's such a volatile. I feel like that is a logical way forward, but there isn't logic in this market at the moment. Yeah. So, but it's questions that I can start asking.
Yeah. So, I mean, just last week, so the Flexible Space Association is a member itself of the CBI, and they were in touch asking for our members' experiences, and I was in touch with all of our members to get their feedback, and we have put in a submission to them, and they in turn will be using that to lobby government on measures to help businesses on energy costs. So we're definitely having a say on that on behalf of the sector as well. So I think that the cap on energy prices was definitely one of those. I guess it's going to depend in part how things pan out over the next few months. So moving on to another question. The graph showed energy prices peaked November, December, but have now reduced, albeit not to the same prices as early 2021. By the fact graph has reduced, why would people commit to longer than 12 months? Would you agree 12 months is best option? And also keen to know more about electric over gas. A couple of bits in there, but
so it really is down to where you are as a business, how much energy you're using. It's really quite a bespoke service in this sort of industry. It's hard to, if you can take the hit of higher prices for 12 months, then obviously I'd encourage businesses to do that. But it's hard to tell over the next few years how far the energy prices are going to come down. I don't think we'll see prices the same as 2021 for a few years. But businesses tend to go for longer term contracts, and we advise that because they can't take that initial hit of how expensive prices are now for the next 12 months. So planning that out for a few years is sometimes a favourable option, and what's viable for that business at that time.
Okay. And what other changes apart from LED lights can we make at local building level, where we have building management companies who make the decisions of who our providers are, which again, emphasises how many different arrangements there are for flexible workspace operators, that not everyone does have control over their whole buildings, or perhaps using a space in a bigger building. You got any other thoughts on that?
That's an interesting one. I would try and conduct sort of an internal energy survey to see where you could be sort of reducing. That isn't something that I'm an expert in, but I would always encourage a energy survey to see where you can do that internally, which we could help put you in contact with some people of that. But yeah, personally, not something I'm an expert in.
I guess it also picks up on what you were saying about involving everybody as well in making, which I think that will particularly chime well at the moment with people because of the bigger environmental discussions going on, that people will be, it won't just be about pricing if people see those messages in terms of how much it's costing to leave the lights on in terms of monetary terms. So perhaps it's a good time to be able to be sharing those kind of messages and making sure that people, where the lights aren't going off automatically, switching the lights off.
Absolutely. Then behavioural changes are really make their difference. And motivational sort of posters that sort of suggest, if you're not, by taking the stairs, how many trees have been saved by that, or the likes of them sort of posters are really quite beneficial in them sort of workspaces. So then behavioural changes are a good place to start. But
that, isn't it? I hadn't thought at all about the energy use of lifts, but that is a really good point. Yeah. I try and take the stairs because I think it's probably a lot better for me than taking the lift, but that's a double bonus to be able to be doing a bit to save the energy as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's all the questions. That's probably quite a good one to have ended on. Thank you very much, Dannie. I think we picked up, I'm sure we've all picked up some good tips for our home situation as well as our business one.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's something we have to cope with as well now, isn't it?
Yes. So double benefits. Thank you. And our next webinar in this new series is going to be on Wednesday, the 9th of February, developing a marketing strategy and plan for flexible workspace businesses, which was with Zoe Ellis-Moore from Spaces to Places. And details of that are on the Flexible Space Association's website, and you can book a place now on that, and we'll be showing that a bit nearer the time. So thank you very much, Dannie, and thank you everybody for watching, and hope to see you next month on the next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.